Can I say except you're welcome?
Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. I hope you're having a great day so far. So for today's video, I am going to be answering your makeup dilemmas, your makeup problems. I feel bad all the time because I get a lot of questions in my Instagram DMs and here on YouTube, and I try to reply to comments on all platforms as much as physically possible without that taking over my life, but it's just not feasible for me to provide like a sort of makeup consultation, one-to-one consultation service via my Instagram DMs, which is sometimes what I feel actually people are really looking for and wanting and needing, but it's obviously just not something that is practical for me to be able to provide that way. So I thought instead I would start a bit of a series here on YouTube answering your questions so that you'll have opportunities every now and then. Whenever I do one of these videos, I'll pop up a question stamp in my Instagram stories. Make sure you're following me over there, and then that way any burning questions, anything you wish that I could help you out with, if you pop it in there, I will try and answer as many as possible in these videos. So I hope this is helpful and it kind of somehow helps people out. And also obviously you get to listen to everybody else's questions and answers and get a lot more information than me just answering your question for you. So hopefully this is helpful and we'll see how it goes. So the first question is from Alessia, and she asked, would love to know what products you would recommend for bridal makeup. And I had a few questions about bridal makeup, and do you know what, you can't go wrong keeping it simple. My absolute recommendation, what I would use if I had to do my own bridal makeup today, would be Charlotte Tilbury. I feel like her whole brand is geared towards bridal. You know, you cannot go wrong with the Pillow Talk palette, the Instant Eye palette. I think that would be a gorgeous bridal makeup look on many different skin tones, and as well as her sticks like her cream blush highlight sticks in one, those would be gorgeous for a wedding day. You know, any of her products, I feel like everything that Charlotte makes leans very bridal. That would be the brand that I would look at if I were you. That's kind of where I would start. I just think Charlotte Tilbury, everything is like your skin, your own beauty, just slightly enhanced, given a little bit of a zhuzh, if you like. That's what I think Charlotte Tilbury's aesthetic is. So yeah, I would look at Charlotte Tilbury, look at her Pillow Talk collection. I just think that is literally bridal personified. So I get this question a lot, so I'm really grateful to Luz Rivera for asking this one, because I get asked this question a lot and I do reply to people, but obviously people only see their own replies, so I get this is a repeat question I get asked all the time. So which makeup brushes do I prefer, Refa or Sonia G? And again, this is a bit like asking, you know, do you prefer this or this? And actually I don't necessarily really have a preference. I don't really prefer one over the other. I definitely have a lot more Sonia G face brushes and a lot more Refa eye brushes. That's just kind of how things have gone. Obviously I get gifted my Refa brushes, and I actually have been lucky enough to have been gifted recently some Sonia G brushes, but I also bought a lot of them myself. I don't really have a lot the same to compare, and they obviously are so different. I don't have exact replicas or duplicates between Refa and Sonia. They're very different. The brushes that I own are completely different. So there are Sonia G brushes that I prefer. I prefer the Sonia G foundation brushes. They're my absolute favourites now since they came into my life. I prefer the Sonia G Face Pro for bronzer to anything I have from Refa. But then I almost exclusively use Refa brushes for my eyes. So I couldn't tell you I prefer this brand, that's my favourite brush brand, because it depends which brush, which purpose. But yeah, I think their Refa brushes, eye brushes, are incredible, and I think every brush I've used from Sonia is incredible. So I guess my answer would kind of be Refa for eyes, Sonia for face, but that just happens to be the brand that I have the most of in those categories. It's very hard to compare because they are completely different. Summer asked how to know what undertone bronzer to go for to suit your skin tone / undertone. So the main thing here is to just go to match your own undertone. That's going to give you the most natural looking bronze effect. I think the main thing is to know what your skin undertones. I actually have a video on knowing your undertones that has lots of tips, different ways you can figure out what your undertone is. But there are also lots of resources available if you don't actually know what your skin undertone is. Work that out first. If you already know what your undertone is, it's just that simple. You just match your bronzer with your undertone. Nowadays, we're very lucky because bronzers usually in their description will say whether they're warm or cool or a neutral toned bronzer. So that helps us out. It used to be like there was one shade of bronzer and it was just the bronzer and there was no description. We had no idea what the undertones were going to be until it arrived and we tried it on. These days, ranges like the Charlotte Tilbury, ranges like the Dior, because there are such a range of options and they'll state whether this one is cool or warm or neutral. And if you know your undertones, you just go for the one that matches your undertone. So I tend, because I'm olive, I have an olive undertone, but it leans warmer when I don't have any tan, and in the summer it leans more of a cool olive. So I pretty much always will lean towards a warmer bronzer, but I don't want a very orange bronzer either. I lean towards redder tones because that's the shade that I naturally bronze. So that's kind of what I lean towards because it looks the shade that I tan, and that's what you want to replicate. What shade, when you get a tan, a natural tan, not when you apply a tan, but when you get a natural tan, when the sun hits your skin, that's what you're trying to replicate with bronzer. So if you are very cool toned, you want to lean more of a cool toned bronzer. If you are very warm toned, you want a warm toned bronzer. And if you have a neutral undertone, then you can probably pull either shade, but you want to try and find one that's a neutral undertone ideally. Jude asks, how do you stop foundation sinking into large pores and looking even more visible? So this is going to be like prep. I don't have enlarged pores or large pores especially, but I do know there are lots of excellent, one, skincare options and two, primers. The MAC Prep and Prime Skin Refine Zone, I really like that one because it also stops so much oil production, and I have a bit of a slightly oily nose at times around the sides. I know that's a problem lots of people have, and that one works very well for that as well. But yeah, skin prep is important for everybody, and whether it's skincare or primers, it's going to, depending on your skin type and skin problems that you face, is going to be even more important that you target those areas, those problem areas, and also setting your foundation so that throughout the day it doesn't go more and more into your pores. But foundations are going to do that to a degree, more or less, depending on the foundation's performance as well. So it's just about finding someone on YouTube who has the same skin type concerns as you and seeing how things perform on you. I think is a hugely useful thing to have, even if it's someone who's got the same skin tone, so you can match your foundation shades from them, or someone who has the same skin type and watch their foundation reviews, find foundations that they are specifically saying helps with their issues that are the same as yours, because it's very unhelpful, I know, when I say, you know, I don't have dry skin, so I can't really comment on that. I don't have oily skin, so I can't really tell you how it would hold up on someone with oilier skin than mine and things like that. It's quite hard for me to advise you. I'm not a professional, so I only work on my own face. I don't have a lot of reference as far as other skin types than my own, but that would be my advice, is find someone on YouTube with your same skin type, your same skin concerns, and see how products perform on them and what they use. But that's my tip, is that I know the MAC is a pretty decent one. I know it's important to prep your skin, to find a primer that stops the foundation sinking in there, to find a great foundation that doesn't do that to too much of a degree, and to set with powder so that it doesn't kind of migrate throughout the day. Favorite Natasha Denona and Charlotte Tilbury small palettes. I love Star Aura from Charlotte Tilbury and my latest 5-pan from Natasha Denona, which is sold out everywhere, but the number 3 of her 5-pans, that's my absolute favorite. Probably second from Natasha, as that one's not available, might be the Mini Retro, is a really lovely one. Really depends on what colours you love, but yeah, you can't really go wrong with Charlotte Tilbury quad. The Star Aura is stunning, so is Fire Rose. If you're UK based, you can still get that one. The Natasha Denona, again, there's none that I dislike. It will just depend on your preference as to what colour story you're looking for. Sophie asks, which foundations would you recommend for mature skin with hyperpigmentation? So I have not necessarily mature skin, but I'm not 20 either, and I have some hyperpigmentation. I have melasma, so I would pretty much recommend my favourite foundations. I absolutely love the Clé de Peau. I love my Tom Ford Shade and Illuminate. I love the Shiseido, all of the Shiseido foundations. Those are the ones that I really enjoy. Again, depending on your skin type, whether you're oily, dry, or somewhere in the middle, will depend on which of those works best for you. But yeah, if you check out my top foundations ranking videos, those products, we have the kind of similar skin types, so my favorite foundations will probably be your favorite foundations. Use All the Makeup asked the most subtle highlight that I love, and it's this bad boy, the Pat McGrath. This is the Divine Rose. It's just everything for me. It's just such the perfect finish. The shade really suits my skin tone. It can be as absolutely gorgeously melt into the skin subtle as you want it to be. You can use as little or as much as you want, and it's never heavy, it's never cakey, it's never too thick. It just melts and melts and melts into the skin. The absolute goat of highlights. Tamil asks, what do you use to remove your makeup? So at the moment I've been using the Versed cleansing balm, which I've been loving. I'm nearly through it now. Before that I was using the MAC cleanse off oil, which is like my holy grail. Those two are both excellent depending on whether you want a balm that's a bit more travel friendly or an oil. And then I go in with my Fresh Rose cleanser and my Foreo device, and I do a double cleanse. So that's what I use, either the Versed cleansing balm or the MAC cleanse off oil. Those would be my absolute staple makeup removers. So How Mel asked, which products would you advise buying the best you can and which can you skimp on? So where to invest your money. I actually did a whole video on exactly this, where if you want to know, I'll try and link it in the cards or somewhere, where I talk through how I think you should invest your makeup money, where you should opt to spend the most or put your most investment into, and where you can kind of get away with spending less and getting just as good of a result. The short version of that question is base. I would always invest in your foundation, concealer, especially if you have more mature skin, and primer. Those for me, I feel like if you lay down, it's a bit like building a house, isn't it? You can't have shoddy foundations and expect the house to stay up. So for me, I would always really recommend spending time investing and finding a foundation and a primer combination as well as concealer that works beautifully for you. Because if you have a foundation that doesn't wear very well, or it doesn't hold up very well, or it doesn't really give you the finish, or it's not quite the right shade, everything else is kind of going to go on top and it's going to wear away with the foundation, it's going to move around with the foundation, and it's going to be impacted by how well the foundation wears, as well as everything just being a little off if the undertone isn't right and the shade isn't right. So that would be my advice. I would absolutely invest your money in your base, because that's going to help things like bronzers, blushes, highlights going on top. If they're going on top of a fantastic foundation that wears beautifully and just is perfect for your skin type, your skin tone, everything else on top is going to look better and last better because it's sitting on top of that foundation. If your foundation wears away underneath, it's going to take everything on top with it. I also think that the difference as far as things like lip products, so lipsticks, for example, might not hold up as well, or might not feel as nice on the lips, might not be as hydrating, or they might not just wear as well. Well, you can always reapply, so it doesn't really make as much of a difference. You can always reapply that. You can always touch up things like blush and highlight if they don't wear as well. Things like mascara. I know lots of people feel like there's no point in spending money on mascaras. I personally find that high-end mascaras stay good for much longer than drugstore mascaras do, but obviously you can just repurchase quicker. So again, that's somewhere where, yes, there are fantastic drugstore mascaras, and actually if you're just trying to save money, you can repurchase them more frequently and have less of an outgoing initially. So that would kind of be my advice on that one. So Amanda asks, so just bought my first Pat McGrath Mothership palette and it creases so much and doesn't last. How do you get eyeshadow to stay and last all day? I've tried a lot, but to no avail. I also had a question about why I use concealer instead of eyeshadow primer, so I'll kind of answer that in a one, if that's okay with you guys. So the first thing is Pat McGrath Motherships. So this is a strange one for me because I use, like, they will always be my absolute favourite eyeshadow palettes, Motherships. They're always the ones that if I'm just doing any makeup I like, I'm not especially filming for YouTube and I'm just getting ready, they'll always be the palettes that I want to use. They're my absolute favourites. I just love them and they give me a lot of joy. I've never had an issue with them not lasting or creasing, but it's not the first time I've heard this. You're not alone. It's not just you. I definitely have seen and heard other people have this same issue with Pat's Motherships. It's not an issue I have, But I know it is an issue for some people. So you're not alone. You're probably not doing anything wrong. And I'm not 100% sure why this happens to some people and not others, but it's likely to do with your skin type. Some people have oilier eyelids, and obviously shadows struggle more with an oilier lid than they would with one that isn't as oily, and also skin type, what your eyelid texture is like, and also what prep you're doing is all going to affect how eyeshadows look, perform, and how they last. So those are the things that I think might be behind why this happens to some people and not others. I definitely don't have an oily eyelid. I do very good skincare and skin prep before makeup, always use an eye cream, a non-greasy eye cream so that the eye area is hydrated before going in with eyeshadow. Also leave enough time between doing skincare and doing makeup so that it has time to settle into the skin and you're not kind of mixing the two. So I use concealer, which I set with powder. Now the reason I do that instead of using an eyeshadow primer, which lots of people prefer and recommend, is it just works better for me. That's the simple answer. I have tried a lot of different eye primers, eyeshadow primers, and for my use, my skill level and the type of makeup I'm doing, that works better for me than using an eyeshadow primer. Eyeshadow primers generally stay tacky. So what they do very, very well is they give you ultimate pigment and colour payoff because you're applying a shadow on top of something that's tacky and grippy. So it's really going to show up. I don't know why I'm showing you a bare hand. It's got nothing to do with this. But it's like applying a wet shadow versus a dry shadow, which is what applying eyeshadow onto a set concealer with powder is like. So it's going to give you more pigmented payoff, which obviously a makeup artist or someone doing a very dramatic or very colourful look wants the ultimate colour payoff. So they're going to use an eyeshadow primer that's going to give them that, and it's going to stick the eyeshadow, and they're going to apply usually in like a stamping motion and then blend out as the primer sets. For me, one, I have veins and discoloration and redness on my eyes that I want to cover, so a concealer does that very, very well. And once I set my concealer with powder, it just gives me a very, very easy base to blend into because I'm blending powders with powders. I think it takes a bit more skill, time, precision and practice to apply onto an eyeshadow primer than it does a set concealer. And obviously I'm not a professional, I don't have a lot of time, and generally I don't care about getting the maximum colour payoff. I just want an easier blend, so that's why I prefer concealer set with powder. I've tried eyeshadow primers, I don't get along with them very well. That's what I prefer. So that would be my advice to you, is that's what I do, and it works very well for me, is I make sure my eyes are prepped, make sure I use an eye cream, make sure there's enough of a gap between skincare and makeup. Then I use a concealer that I know is a good concealer, so one of my favourite concealers that doesn't crease under my eyes and therefore hopefully won't crease on top of my eyes either, and I set heavily with powder, pressed powder, and that allows me to work really easily with any shadow, not just the Pat McGrath. As I said, I don't have an issue with creasing or those shadows not holding up. It's got to be down to either your skin type or how oily your lids are or the prep that you're doing. So really make sure that you get those things in order, but it may just be unfortunately a case of if your lids are oilier, or depending on what the texture is like on your lids, that they just aren't going to work as well for you as they would with someone who has an easier texture or skin type to work with, unfortunately. So Colori, I'm sorry, I didn't know how to read your Instagram handle, but she asked, what are my favourite cream products since I generally dislike them? Yes, I do. I don't really love, there's no real love cream products in my collection. There are some that I don't mind, or that I even maybe like a little. But yeah, you're right, I'm not a cream fan, not a cream person. I feel like you either are or you aren't when it comes to creams, and I'm definitely am not. But some that I think are decent, definitely the Lisa Eldridge cream highlight and blush. Got on very, very well with those. I think they're beautiful. As well as the Charlotte Tilbury sticks, any of the sticks, the highlight, the cream blushes that are in sticks, her cream Contours wands, all of those wands I think from Charlotte Tilbury are gorgeous and very easy to work with. And I quite like the Nars Cream bronzer. I think that's decent. I did like the original Chanel cream bronzer, but since it's been reformulated, it's just not the same. Aoife asked, will you try the new Hourglass blush sticks? So the answer is no. I'm taking a break from the brand. I made a video explaining my reasons if you want to check that out for more information, but I'm not really purchasing from I'm not purchasing from Hourglass at the moment, and given that they are cream blush sticks, it certainly wasn't the product that was going to drag me back into wanting to support the brand. So for the moment, like I said, I'm taking a break from Hourglass, won't be reviewing their products while we see what they're going to do about their inclusivity and whether they're going to improve that or not. I try to be as inclusive on my channel as possible, and I really do not want to review products that a lot of my audience aren't going to be able to use and that doesn't cater to a lot of my audience. I just don't want to add to how that makes people feel. Like, it's one thing for them to go into a shop and not be able to purchase something because, oh look, they don't want me as a customer. I'm not going to repeat that feeling on my channel. It's not something I want to be a part of or want to add to. So for me, until Hourglass does better, then I just don't want to support the brand. So Mandy's asked for a mascara that doesn't burn. Now I don't think I've ever tried a mascara that does burn. So this is one for the audience, because I'm guessing this is like, maybe you have sensitive eyes and that's why you're having this issue, because it's not an issue I've ever experienced. And I've had some mascaras I don't like, but I've never had a mascara that makes my eyes burn. Obviously none of the mascaras I use do that. So none of the Pat McGrath mascaras that I love, the Charlotte Tilbury mascara, the new Beauty mascara, none of those have ever made my eyes burn, but it's obviously not an issue I have. So anybody with sensitive eyes, let's make our own little community here and answer each other's problems. If we have the same issues, that's something that we can pool our minds and our info together. If you have sensitive eyes, if you know that you have a mascara that is really, really good for being gentle on the eyes, let's help Mandy out in the comment section. Phew, so I think that's about all we can cover today. I hope that you found this helpful and I answered as many makeup questions and dilemmas as possible. Like I said, if this video does well, if people like it, if you enjoy it, let me know, comment, like the video. We'll see how it goes. Hopefully if it's popular and it's helpful and you guys enjoy it, we'll make this a series and you'll have regular opportunities to ask your question and have your dilemma answered, and hopefully this is going to be helpful for you guys. I hope you enjoyed this video and I'd love to see you in the next one. Otherwise, take care for now. Bye.